I kind of want to get into mentoring the next generation of real estate professionals. So there's this, even our story, right? Like land use and commercial real estate, there's always been a barrier of entry for both. So there's a lot of residential agents that want to get into commercial real estate and they kind of hesitate because it's a completely different world where it's data driven, it's formulas. A lot of the people make those decisions not based on emotion, but just based on circumstance and the facts, right? So they are going to buy something based on the numbers and projections, and they underwrite those deals. So it's completely different than residential. And same with land use. Is even commercial agents that we've spoken to from CBRE on down, they're retail only, right? Leasing only. And at that point, they're just like, look, we don't even want to kind of put our foot into land use and zoning because that seems pretty foreign to us, and it's going to be a learning curve. So, you said disruptive. That's at least in part what we'd like to do, is disrupt at least the information to get a lot of it out there and explain it in a cost-effective way to get more entrants in. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, right? That's why I love having you on today, because you're in the trenches. Now that, okay, fine, there's site selection, there's some light touches with the architect and massing, it provides value, but it's not the project. It's just starting the conversation is where we're at. You're taking that all the way through to topping out and getting that project fully built. So what would you say to, like I have conversations with fix and flippers, right? And the luxury spec market has slowed down a bit, I would say, locally here in, Los Angeles. And so they kind of want to get into development, but I think I spoke with you and you said building 50 units and 350 units is completely different, right? The GCs are different, the planning is different, everything is different. But irregardless, it's still development and building, and it's not just fixing and flipping one single lot, right? Property. What would you say about like what you're doing to kind of start to mentor the new generation of people that really want to start to not only just do this, but do this better, also disrupt this entire process that you're talking about, the cities. I know there's some prop tech companies, construction tech companies. There's even, on the government side, there's GovTech, right? That's slowly starting to build to help them manage 50, 100 projects and leverage technology so they don't make mistakes and can do them faster. So what would you kind of say to that? Like, are you looking to mentor? Is there some ideas that you have that can, I guess, bring the next generation to doing development, but then obviously better?
Well, when I think of mentoring, John, I think of, and I love talking about this topic, actually. Thank you. I think of college kids, those going through their either undergrad or graduate school.
Yeah.
I've lectured at USC.
MRed, right?
Yeah, right. I also do a lot more work with UCLA. As a matter of fact, I know you're a USC guy, and my wife actually was a gymnast at USC until she blew out her knee. Then she graduated from UCLA, but her whole family's USC predominantly.
Yeah.
UCLA is virtually 2 minutes from my house. I live in Westwood. I have a great relationship with the gentleman who runs the real estate group there.
Yeah.
I've recently been working with a group of students who have been underwriting a big potential deal in Oakland as an advisor there. I've worked on the NAIOP Challenge with those students as well, who actually beat USC the last time I worked with them. But let's drop all that. I roll, wave, roll, and go Hopkins, But I think that I would not be sitting here in my position today if it weren't for people who took time out of their day and gave me advice, helped me meet somebody, helped me evaluate a job opportunity, pushed me in a direction to go, et cetera. So I feel it's that way. With regard to single family home guys and people, I think everyone looks at the development world and they're like, oh, it's so easy. Look at them driving around their Jaguars and they got their big gold watches. When you're in development, you have your heart in your throat most of the time. Your stomach is doing somersaults all the time.
Okay.
My client right now in our project downtown at 1340 South Hill, he's literally been working his buns off keeping equity and debt, working through the documents. Luckily, the lender started underwriting this deal back in the middle of 2019. So it was nothing new. It
Yeah.
was already on their books. They already had, had a good pass at it. The equity guys have fallen into place. I think COVID's also creating kind of a vulture market too, as well. I think there are vulture capitalists out there waiting for projects to stall, things not to start.
Take
You know,
over.
hotels that go dark for periods of time might be
right.
up. You know, retail centers might be scooped up and revitalized. Office buildings might become residential. So I think of mentoring in that regard, that people just look at development and think, oh, this is so easy. This is no problem, you know? And I'm like, dude, you have no idea what you're about to get into. So let's talk about it. Let me explain to you where the hurdles are. And I can't do a Vulcan mind meld and get someone to know everything I do, although that was always my task.
Right.
And number one goal when I was working, at CityView, CIM, et cetera, whenever there was someone younger than me, it always seems it's my job to pour my brain into their brain to improve the team, because the more they know, the faster they can run.
Right.
And I watch single family home developers in my neighborhood. I've been building houses since I was 17. I look at a job site that's, there's one around the corner from me. It's been filthy the whole time. and it's like just a disaster.
Yeah.
And I know it's this guy's first job. It just reeks of newness, of a virgin developer.
Yeah.
And there was a house being constructed across the street from me. And sometimes mentoring is also a function of sticking your nose where it doesn't belong. And I talked to my neighbor. I said, look, I know this is none of my business, but this is what I do for a living. And I hope that you realize you need to let them finish the job and then punch out the work. And when they say they're done, that's when you go do a walkthrough. Don't let them pull you along to do a punch out with them, because they're just going to make the list of what they need to do to get off your job.
Right.
Because that's what I employ on my project. And to your point, there are a lot of people who are jumping into development because maybe they're brokers, so they know how to tie up a piece of property, or they're architects.
Capital. They have
they're architects. They're GCs. Oh, you're a great GC. Let's go build something here. Here's $10 million. Right. Let's go build a 22-unit building, or anything under 50 units is by right.
Right.
So, and then when somebody does that, I've spent a lot of time working with companies who have said, hey, we've done a number of 22, 30, 38 unit buildings. We just tied up a site for 250 units. We are excited. I'm like, that's great.
Yeah.
But you are not going to have that same GC or level of subs. You're now in the major leagues. And, there's a big difference when you play college ball and, they always, and you play major league, or, every time a running back that's a first round draft pick goes running down and some linebacker just lambastes them, welcome to the NFL. So I always try to, and I'm happy to talk to people about that, is you need to realize you're in the bulge bracket. Yeah. Your project's going to go from $10 million to $100 million.
Wow.
You're going to be dealing with a different level of architects. Now we're into institutional grade. The minute you cross 100 units, especially at 200 units for sure, is a big enough project. And it kind of works backwards. A 200 unit project is where your big bulge bracket subcontractors, your major concrete guys, your major framers, your major MEP, elevator, unions, prevailing wage. You got to deal with all this stuff. That's where they are going to be interested in your job, because you're going to have someplace they can park, 6 guys to work for 4 months, and they know they can get. And then when you get the right general contractor, the subs know, oh, that team runs like a clock.
Yeah.
I know.
I want to get on that project.
Yeah, they know what to do. And you got to work. Then you got to find the right architect and all the consultants that. When you've got a building that's 20 units and someone has a problem that they can hear the unit next door, things I've dealt with in my career, that's pretty easy to solve. When you've got 280 units and 75 have a problem with they can hear now, you've got to solve those problems so they never come up. I think, you've had Steven Anderson on. Steven and I worked together delightfully at CityView. Yeah. And what really worked well that we could work together is because we both realized you're passing a baton in this industry. So he was on the acquisition investment team.
Yeah.
I worked hand in hand with Steven and his team to help, do the soft cost, hard cost budget, give him all the guts of the information he needed to run his pro forma.
Right.
So then when he handed it off to me, I had the numbers I needed. I had the budget for an acoustical guy. I had the budget for somebody who evaluates accessibility. I mean, we spend thousands of dollars getting somebody just to make sure that we don't have a problem with our dimensions, because God forbid you finish your project and you don't have the clearance and you're off by an inch. The inspector can shut you down, or worst case, you get somebody who's unfortunately, disabled, and they can't maneuver or they can't open the front door because it doesn't have the right pounds per foot.
Wow.
And you're looking at a lawsuit in the face.
Right.
And also when you then I pass the baton to property management. So, getting them involved day one in the design works its way through. So mentoring to me is doing everything I can to help people realize you're in a different league, and you got to wake up to what you're in. A lot of people come from the design career, finance career, construction career. Those three are really how people end up in development. And there's such a large facet of opportunities within development, and any project that might be 2 years of entitlements, a year of drawing, permits, and then 2 years of construction. I mean, I literally have babies when I start a project because it's going to take a long time to deliver.
Yeah.
That's they just have to be eyes wide open and understand what they're getting into. So if it's not, undergraduate students trying to figure out what's the best first job,
right,
which at that point you can do anything because you don't know anything, or maybe someone's been to graduate school because they had a job in brokerage, which is a great training ground. They had a job at a construction company, which is great training ground. They work for a designer, which is great training ground, because all those skills you need to facilitate, to put a new building on the planet, you then start to bridge. So, if I can help them figure out what's the next best job, if somebody's from the finance world, well, maybe a great job for them is to go work for a construction company right out of grad school and go build a building.
Right.
So you know what the heck you're talking about.
Right.
There are many times in all of my jobs working for, investment grade companies where I'm sitting across the table from very smart men and women, University of Chicago, Wharton, Harvard, Stanford. They can make a computer sing, but they have no idea what rebar is, and they just don't know. And I've enjoyed, luckily, working with great teams in all my careers and educating them. And by the time I'm done working through a project with a recent graduate or someone who's new to the industry, I taught at Hopkins for 3 years part-time after I finished school, and I worked with a number of students working on their thesis projects. So for me, mentoring it's one of the most gratifying things I've ever done, besides my own kids and my obviously loving family relationships and friends. And I think I've really affected people's lives in a good way, because, by the time we start, they don't know anything. By the time they finish, they're animals, they're killers. And I've never felt better of looking at the people that I've worked with or worked for me or with me and knowing what they do today. I don't think there's a better feeling in this industry than passing on the knowledge you have and guiding someone to them to be, I hope they're 15 times more successful than me as a result.
That's great, Mike. When I first met you too, I saw that in you too. I definitely feel like you need to probably, in addition to DevelUp, create some sort of online school or something to kind of bring better people. And my point earlier was just, I just feel like given this pandemic, we need fresh new thoughts and ideas. There are, all of this modular builds, bringing the cost of construction down, green tech. You have this pandemic with climate change. So now every real estate owner has to get to net zero, and what are the costs of that, what they have to do. I just feel like you are the perfect person to kind of bring these other kind of fresh ideas, fresh people to the issue at hand, which is involved in development, because we are going to be building these cities for, to last 50 or 100 years. But if we're doing it the same way all the time, there's going to be an issue there too.